It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Hello, my viewers. Old school, right? Dr. Zarkloff, right? Zarkloff, I think was his name. I really liked his YouTube channel. It was really kind of corny and stuff, kind of like Mr. Rogers, but some factual good information in it. So it's a bummer he stopped posting on YouTube. There's a lot of the OG guys that stopped posting on YouTube, but oh well, it's a bummer. Hey, how you guys doing? I'm doing pretty good over here. My shoulder, neck, back, elbow, whatever pinch nerve thing is getting a little bit better, so that's cool. Yeah, do me a favor if you guys haven't already, as you guys are scrolling or coming in here and stuff, smash the thumbs up button. It definitely helps the stream. It really does, okay? So as usual, got a couple things I want to talk about. I'm going to check out the chat, answer you guys' questions. But let's get this started off right, okay? My name is Chris, and if you don't already know, I'm an HVACR service technician. I know we've got a lot of new viewers right now. So I do these live streams to kind of consolidate the questions from all the YouTube video comments and emails that I get. So I try to kind of look at the commonly asked questions and kind of address them on this live stream. So those that are new in the chat, do me a favor. If you have a question, put your comment or question in caps lock inside the chat, and then myself, and just keep posting it until I answer it, or myself or the moderator tells you to stop. Connor, thank you very much for that super chat, bud. I really do appreciate it, okay? Yeah, so let's get on with it. So this last week I had some pretty interesting videos. One of them was kind of boring. As you guys saw, I was running out of footage, but then I got a really cool service call too that led to a really cool video that actually led to a lot more, okay? So, but before we get going on that, I just want to kind of do a couple reminders here. Sporlin has a webinar coming up this Thursday. It'll be posting in the moderator bot will be posting it in the chat. Sporlin's webinar is going to be on high pressure oil level controls. It'll be this Thursday, 3/4. I'm going to post it in the chat myself real quick. Check it out, sign up for it. It's Thursday. I think they do, what did I say, 1 p.m. Central Time is usually when it posts. So let's see. The next thing, the HVACR Training Symposium with HVACR School. Brian Orr's hosting it. It's going to be at his offices in Claremont, Florida. It'll be next Thursday through Saturday. It's a 3-day event. The cool thing, though, is if you can make it in person, go for it. I think there's still some in-person tickets available, but if you can't make it in person, he also has a live stream kind of a thing, right, where you can log in online, and he's going to have some of the presentations online. Now, I am not going to be there in person this year, but I will be doing a live, well, the plan is that I'm going to be doing a live broadcast specifically for the event. Whether or not I can live stream that broadcast, I don't know. I haven't figured out the logistics of all that yet. But at a minimum, I will be presenting next Thursday for hvacrschool.com. If you're interested in signing up for Brian's event, just simply go to hvacrschool.com. I want to address something really quick, too. I'm sure a lot of you guys get this or know this, but maybe some of you don't. Brian and I are two different people, okay? If you couldn't tell by the videos, Brian looks different than me. I look different than Brian. But we actually do get mistaken for each other quite often. People watch my videos and they'll send me an email saying, hey, I really love, this or that. And then I'd be like, hey, that was Brian that did that. So we are two separate people. It's interesting that we have similar names. It's just kind of a coincidence that happened. We started our stuff right around the same time. I picked the name HVACR Videos and he picked the name HVAC School. But if you try to find HVACschool.com, it's not Brian. So I'm assuming he had to pick HVACrschool.com, which maybe that's why people get a little confused. So, but yeah, we are two different people. So, all right, let's see what we got going on here. Doesn't Sporlin know we got jobs? Nate Peterson. Good point. Okay. So the cool thing about Sporlin's stuff, yeah, they do it because what it is they're engineers. And the engineers do it on the clock, basically, during their normal business hours. But it always posts on their YouTube channel. Go to Sporlin Video on YouTube, and you can see all the stuff posted like a couple hours after it's gone live, okay? But I'll log into it sometimes when I'm working or something like that. It's just like a telecast. You can listen to it. They do have video stuff, but yeah, it's one of those things. You can always watch it after the fact if you need to, so... all right. John Gorthy, thank you very much, man, for the nice words. I really appreciate it. All right. Let me see what else we got going on in here. The stainless. Oh yeah. The strobe reflection that happens. It's the silly lighting for some reason on the sign. And then what you're actually seeing, watch this, is you're seeing the light reflecting off my fan. It'll probably stop strobing as the fan turns off. So, all right, let me see what else. What am I missing inside the chat? I already answered all that stuff. All right, cool. Let me see what else we got going on in here. So, the elephant in the room. Why am I using Testo products? Did Field Piece piss me off? Did I decide to get rid of my Field Piece stuff? No. Okay, I'm not going to get rid of my Field Piece stuff. It's not going to happen. I love the Field Piece products. I'm going to continue to use Field Piece products. The people have been asking me, multiple people have asked me, why am I using Testo? Okay, if you don't understand, I'm using Testo right now because I'm reviewing a product, all right, that myself and the Overtime crew are starting a new YouTube channel, or we're continuing my YouTube channel called HVACR Tools, and we're all going to start posting videos on that YouTube channel, okay? We all have the Testo products. We ordered that. It was sent to everybody, all right? But I just want to make it clear, for this video, for the Testo products, nobody supplied those to us. We did not get them for free. We paid for them, okay? Those were all paid for, and we're going to give an honest, unbiased review on the Testo products. I myself was surprised by a few things that the Testo products had, but I was also disappointed in a few things that the Testo products had. We're not going to be on this YouTube channel. We're not going to be bashing anything, but we are going to be giving our opinion and letting you guys form your own opinions, from those. Okay, we're just going to be giving the facts and all that stuff. I thank you very much for that super chat, bud. I really appreciate it. And yes, we do have a Discord server. There should be a link to the Discord server posting in the chat by the moderator bot here in a few minutes. It's an auto post. It'll come up here. So, and I already got the Coke nose going strong right now. So, all right. Oh, so as far as the YouTube channel, HVACR Tools, let me get a link to that right now. I happen to have it right here. Last week when I mentioned something in the video about it, a lot of people were saying that here's a link for the tool channel right now. So please go subscribe, give it some views, give it some watch time, because that's going to help us to get to the point of monetization, which will help us to fund the tool purchases that we're going to have to make, because this is a interesting project of us, having to do this. So that's a whole nother thing. Okay. The last week we had 2 videos. All right. On these 2 videos, let's see. The first one was the walk-in cooler is hissing. Okay. And the second one was the late night walk-in freezer service call. All right. So we're going to go through some questions on those 2 videos, and then we're also going to get to some other stuff, and we're going to address some questions in the chat too. All right. Let me get to the chat and see what I'm missing here. How common is it for people to steal copper lines where I am? I mean, it hasn't happened in a while, but that particular location where the incident happened, I'd say it happens at least once every 2 years or so. They have something stolen. I think I mentioned it in the video, but they actually had an entire 2-door reach-in cooler stolen off their back dock one time that was in a pallet behind a cage. They cut the cage open and yanked out the giant reach-in cooler. I don't even know how they transported that thing. It was huge. Can I give one bad thing and one good thing about the Testo products right now? That's a hard one. That's a really hard one. I can't really spill anything yet. You got to wait for the video, because there's some interesting things about the Testo stuff. Okay, so for reference, we are reviewing the new Testo manifold, the 550S, which is the new manifold with a new screen. It has a wireless vacuum sensor. Well, at least you can buy a package with the wireless vacuum sensor. We also are reviewing the new Testo 550i, which is the manifold without the screen. Interesting how they work, and really interesting about the manifold and the one without the screen is that they both operate differently within the app. And the 550i has features that the 550s does not have. So I found that very interesting. There's things within the app that you can do with the 550s that you can't do. That you can do with the 550i, the one without the screen, that you can't do with the 550S that has the screen, which kind of baffled me. So that's about all that I'm going to talk about the Testo products, but trust me, the videos will be coming out on the HVACR Tools YouTube channel, and it'll all make sense. Okay, Philip, thank you so very much for that super chat. Holy, that's an awesome super chat, man. Thank you, bud. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. All right. And no, this video is not brought to you by Value Testers. No, it's not brought to you by Value Testers. Okay. All right. Let me see what else we got in here. Have I ever seen refrigerant blow out of compressor terminals? No, I have not. What do I think of Heatcraft's new low-profile coils? John Deere fan. I've worked with a few of them. They can be frustrating at times. I mean, the low-profile coils have always been kind of frustrating. I'm assuming that you're talking about the slimline, the ceiling-mounted slimline ones. If you're talking about the standard ceiling-mounted, ones that are about that tall, I don't know. They're all right. Nothing crazy to talk about them. They have a couple different models. They have the Intelligent, they have the standard model, and they have the QRC, which is the old model. But all right. I'm going to get to my list of things to talk about. So, I did want to cover something else. I'm kind of a really bipolar live stream today. I'm like all over the place. Can't focus on one thing. So I did want to cover something. So, I kind of already talked about it with the Testo products. I am using Testo products right now because it's for a review that I'm doing for the tool channel. But I do want to make it known that I'm not owned by one brand, okay? You see me using Fieldpiece a lot. I'm not owned by Fieldpiece, okay? I'm free to do anything and use anything. Even when I do partner, like I'm not currently partnered with Fieldpiece on anything right now. I'm not saying something won't happen in the future, but same thing with Sporlan. I am partnered with Sporlan right now, but everybody understands when they work with me, I'm not committed to using only their products, period. Okay. No matter who I work with, that's part of the deal. If I ever make a deal with anybody, is I'm never going to be owned by anyone. I'm always going to be able to make my opinions known. If I like something, I like it. And if I don't, I don't, but I'm never specific to one brand. Okay. So just because I use Fieldpiece a lot does not mean that the first time I used Testo, I've thrown field piece out the door. No, not at all. Okay. I still continue to use field piece. But maybe there'll be some Testo products brought in that I might like. So who knows? Okay. Or some new brand that comes out. I mean, I'm all about what works and what's functional, really. So, and what works for me. All right. And that's something important to understand too. Just because something works for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you, and vice versa. Right. You know, it's really about what you're comfortable with and what works good. You know, some people hate field piece products. Okay. I prefer them. It just depends. So, I mean, it's all about what you like. That's all. All right. I see Jason Farmer, you said leak stop questions from a few weeks ago. I don't know what the context is about that, but I am going to say that I don't like leak stop. I don't use leak stop. It's not something that I use even in a last ditch effort. I have used it in the past because customers basically demanded it, but trust me, I'm going to give so many disclaimers if a customer wants me to use any type of a leak sealer in a system. I do not like them. I do not endorse any of them. Good for you if you like them, but I just don't. Okay. So leak stop is not a solution for me, period. I'm a fan of using what came in the system which is oil and refrigerant. I personally don't like adding very many additives at all. I have used additives in the past, such as dye and different things like that, but I can count the instances on my hands. And every instance that I have used dye, I have regretted, okay, after the fact, because that stuff just comes back to haunt you. Even if you change the compressor that had dye in it, you're still going to have dye in the system, and it sprays all over you and it just pisses you off. Same thing with any of these additives that they say unstick TXVs and different things like that. I've never had success from any additives that I've added into the system, whether it be to stop acid formation or anything like that. Now, I'm not going to say that I've had failures because of any additives, because I've honestly, other than being pissed off with UV dye, I've never, a system that I put leak stop into, right, because the customer asked me to, I've never had a problem specifically because of the leak stop. Just for me personally, it never stopped the leak, okay? Same thing with these additives that supposedly make your system operate more efficiently or unstick TXVs or whatever. I've never had anything bad happen from them, but I've never had anything noticeably good happen from them. So, you know, I'm just not a fan of using them. That's all. Okay. No offense if anybody is. It's all good. I'm not saying that you're wrong if you use any of those at all. Okay. It's just my preference not to. So, all right. Let's see. As far as in reference to the walk-in cooler is hissing video, Mike had asked me why I didn't just bust out the leak detector, and he was curious how much my quote was to repair and why they replaced the equipment. Now, I was kind of paraphrasing Mike's question. Mike was saying, hey, he was kind of being a little like aggro about it, saying, hey, you know what? You know, you could have just gotten the leak detector out. Why did you have to change the whole system? La-di-da-di-da. Okay, look at this. Here's the deal. When it came to that video, I was on overtime and I didn't want to spend any more time than I had to do. Okay. So I'm going to answer another question in the midst of this as I'm talking. When I went up on that system, I can remember that was all the way back at the end of summer. When I went up on that system, it was an overtime service call. The customer called me. I went out there. It was clearly low on gas. Okay. The sight glass was empty. The pressures reflected low. And so I added a little bit of refrigerant, but what people don't see a lot of times, you know, the next question that I had is why did I add gas before I looked for a leak? Okay. I get that a lot too. When I first get there, the first thing that I do is I'll walk into the box and kind of use my senses, look around. I noticed that you know, I didn't smell anything funny in the box. You know, so I just kind of used my senses. I listened. I didn't hear any big hissing, leaking sound or anything. Went up on the roof, added a little bit of refrigerant, and had the system been completely flat on gas, of course, I would have gone and, you know, put a little gas in there and done a leak search. But being that it was only a couple pounds short, I went ahead and topped off the charge. I went downstairs, and it didn't really show it on the video, but I did do a leak test. Okay. Just a quick one though, just downstairs at the evaporator. And then I didn't see anything jumping out at me. It wasn't pissing out. I thought it could make it through the weekend. We got through the weekend. Now, you didn't see it on that video, but I actually sent another service tech out there. A couple days later, he did a leak check, couldn't find anything. Flash forward to this month or last month. So it's been quite a few months since then. It hadn't leaked out since. And the customer had decided they wanted to go ahead and replace the equipment. Now, that particular customer that I work for, they buy their own equipment. So I had no control on that. And I'm going to go into a lot of questions right now because a lot of people ask me questions about, You know, what happens why do I do work for customers that purchase their own equipment? Well, here's the deal. As a business owner, every business owner out there has to make a decision, okay? What kind of work you want to do? Do you want to do home warranty work? Do you want to do warranty work for commercial refrigeration? Do you want to do la-di-da-di-da? Do you want to do new install for GCs? Do you want to do all this different stuff? And there's good and bad things. You have to weigh out the good and the bad at every single situation and every single job you choose to do. So I deal with commercial restaurants. That's what I do all the time. So do I want to stay busy during the slow time? Of course I do. Okay, we're in the midst of this crazy pandemic thing and restaurants are dead. And I'm so thankful that I work for some of these chain restaurants that are really, really big, because I'm thankful that they're surviving this. Yes, they've had to cut corners. Yes, they've had to cut back on a lot of different things, but they're still feeding me work. Okay, so I've had a lot of installs lately. I've probably done, in the last 3 weeks, I've probably done 2 or 3 walk-in installations where I've changed evaporators and condensers, run new line sets. And yes, it's all been customer provided equipment, but it's work for me. Okay, so I'm thankful for anything I can get right now. The restaurant industry here in Southern California right now is completely dead. We have not been open to in-person dining since like May of last year. Okay, we had like a brief 2-week period where they opened up the restaurants, and then our numbers went up and they closed everything down. So our restaurants have not had very many sales. They've only been allowed to sell to go and pickup orders and stuff like that. So I'm thankful for anything that I can get. So it's just a business decision that I make to go ahead and accept that work from those customers. Okay. Yeah, it does kind of suck that I'm not getting to mark up the equipment and sell that to them. But hey, you know what? In these crazy times right now, I'll take what I can get, okay? And I'm thankful for that. So, you know, a lot of questions came in too. Hey, when the restaurant provides their own equipment, what happens if they provide the wrong equipment? What happens if it's sized incorrectly? Well, it's on them. Okay, I'm not signing off on any of this equipment, all right? But I will tell you that, knowing me, if you guys have watched my videos enough, I still do my due diligence and contact the company that's supplying the equipment, ask them to send me, you know, the load calcs, ask them to send me the tonnage of the equipment. Then I typically do my own load calculation just to verify, but it wouldn't be on me if the equipment was installed incorrectly. It would just be my problem to fix. But of course I would charge for that. But still, just to eliminate the headache and give my customer the extra satisfaction or whatever, I still verify and confirm that the equipment is sized appropriately. Okay. I also want to cover something else, and this is another couple questions that are inside the chat in the comments on YouTube too. You know, I am not perfect, guys, and I hope that I get that across to you guys, that I'm not the best installation guy. I make mistakes. I'm human, just like every one of you guys. Yes, there's a few guys on Instagram that do, you know, amazing installations. And it's like every installation is by the book. The piping is pitched correctly. There's, you know, P-traps in every place they're supposed to be in. They're reducing the size of the pipe on the risers. You know, they're, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's strapped every 6 feet and perfect. I could only wish to be as good as those companies, okay? But I'm not perfect, okay? Sometimes jobs don't allow for me to be perfect. I have to do what I have to do. I have to get the equipment going, all right? So I don't always pitch my pipe correctly. That was a comment that came through, and it's okay. I'm not mad at any of these comments, by the way, guys. I love the feedback from all of you guys. If any of you guys see something that you think I'm doing incorrect in my videos, I appreciate the feedback. Please send me an email, okay? What I do ask is that you're not a punk in the comments and just blasting me. I mean, I'm okay with criticism, but there's decency too, okay? I don't care if people criticize me in the YouTube comments either. And I'll make it clear, I think I've said this many times too. The only comments I ever delete in YouTube is if someone is bashing, just clearly bashing someone else, or if people try to guess restaurant names, correct or incorrect. Those comments are automatically deleted, okay? I don't delete comments when people talk crap about me. It's fine. Everybody has their opinion, and I'm not one to go in and ditch all that stuff. I'm not a social media censor like some of these crazy social media companies are doing right now. You guys are free to say what you want, but I just ask that you have some respect. But I mean, whatever, you know, but send me an email. Let me know if you can help me to improve, because I would love to become a better service technician. I'd love to do things better. Okay. So answered like 5, 6 questions there, and now I'm at a loss as to where I'm doing. I already covered that one. I already answered that. Answered that one. Okay, so on the overtime service call on the walk-in cooler is hissing, how come I didn't finish the call? How come I did a partial repair? How come I didn't do the leak check when I was there? Well, because number one, the customer only wants me to do, you know, the least amount of work possible to get them operational while I'm on overtime. Okay. Now there's times that, you know, it's in the middle of the summer and I don't have time to come back. So I'm going to give them everything they're going to get, but I really didn't want to be there that night. So I gassed it up, made sure it wasn't pissing gas out, and I bounced, and we came back a couple days later and we finished the job. Okay. So yeah, the customer had to pay me to travel back out. And yes, I did charge them a travel charge and you know, my hourly driving back out there. Yes, I did. Okay. But that's just how it works. Okay. All right. I'm going to get to the chat and see if I'm missing anything in here. Did I leak check the unit with the copper missing? No. I'm going to get to that one here in just a minute. So, has spray foam ever tripped my H10 in a box and or roof penetrations? Cameron. So with my new leak detectors, the newer ones, I noticed that I don't really have the issue with the spray foam and different stuff like that. I used to see that quite often with older leak detectors. I don't know if it's maybe they changed the polyurethane foam. Maybe it has something different in it. But I don't really trip up leak detectors anymore. Now, I don't use an H10 leak detector. I've never used one before. Nothing against them. A lot of people swear by them. The leak detector that I'm currently using right now is the good gosh, the name is too long. The Hvacr D-Tech Stratus. It's got 3 names, this leak detector, and I think that's silly. Before that was the D-Tech Select. The Hvacr D-Tech Select was the one before that. Both of those leak detectors are amazing. So the Hvacr, I'm going to call it the Stratus now. The Stratus is the next step up. It's the big brother to the D-Tech Select. But I really don't get tripped up by foam and stuff like that too much anymore. But that was something that I did have to worry about in the past. So let's see what else we got going on here. Philip, thank you so much for the nice comment, bud. Do I ever work on water chillers? No, I don't. I don't work on chillers in general. I did used to work on some water-cooled equipment when I used to do a bunch of hospital work. Their walk-in coolers were all water-cooled, and then they had water source heat pumps all over the place, and then water-cooled air conditioning units in the server rooms and stuff like that. I used to do a lot of that work, but I've never worked on chillers in general. All right, let me get what else in here. Yeah, please smash the like button, guys. We have 358 people watching and 155 likes. So smash that. Help the algorithm. Please the algorithm, I guess I should say. So, all right. Let me get to this. Let me get to that. Okay, let's get to the late night walk-in freezer call, which I know a lot of people, that one's fresh on everybody's minds. So I got a service call. The customer actually called us on the phone before they dispatched the work order, and they said, hey, all the copper was just stolen off of our walk-in cooler or walk-in freezer, and they sent us some pictures. So I was able to look at the pictures and pick up the materials that I thought I was going to need on the way to the job site. So that was really nice. I appreciate the customer, and I told him thank you for sending me those pictures. So when I got to the job, sure enough, the copper was missing. Some tweakers had gone up there and stolen it. All right. It's in a crappy area. That's in San Bernardino. Not the greatest area. You know, it's got a lot of restaurants and stuff in that area, but it's not the greatest location. They got a lot of tweakers, a lot of homeless people, and someone just got up there and they were hard up for cash, and they stole $20 worth of copper and cost the customer thousands of dollars worth of damage. So I'm going to give you guys a little teaser. All right. They didn't just stop at the walk-in units. All right. That's all I'm going to say. There'll be another video coming. All right. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right. It didn't just stop at the walk-in units, and it went a lot further. So it was pretty crazy. I went back there today, and so we went back there today, and we finished up the repair on the walk-in freezer. Okay. Because I got them going. I went back the next day, and then I came back today with all the clamps and all the other materials, and we cleaned up the line set. And we also did the repair that I showed on the walk-in cooler where we changed that service valve that they started to cut off. We took care of that today too. And yeah, it went a lot further than that. So stay tuned for that video. All right. With that service call, knowing that I was going to that location, knowing that tweakers had just stolen all the copper, what did I do to protect myself when I was going to that service call? Did I bring a gun with me? Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought about it, but I did not. And it was simply because I was lazy. My gun is locked away in my safe, and I thought about grabbing it and taking it with me, but I just didn't need it. I figured I'd be okay. All right. So I felt comfortable enough. You know, had I gotten there and it looked really shady or something, then yeah, no, I probably would have done something. But I felt comfortable enough. So no, I did not bring a gun with me. All right. So the next question, why do I not build a cage, or why does the customer not build a cage around that unit and electrify it? That sounds like a great idea. I think that would be awesome if we could electrify our cages, so that way if a thief goes up and tries to steal it, they get electrocuted and they fall over dead on the ground, shaking, convulsing, whatever. Of course, I don't wish death on anybody, but it'd be cool to see someone laying on the ground convulsing for 5 minutes, then get up and get arrested. But I live in California, and that ain't happening, okay? You are not allowed to electrify a cage. Guys, I can't even shoot someone that breaks into my home without being in trouble for it. So, no, not in California. All right. As far as the customer goes, what's the process with the customer? Okay, what do they have to do now? That was a question that I got quite often. You know what? That's out of sight, out of mind. I have learned to not get involved in that kind of stuff. When they have theft, I don't get involved, you know. Okay, so let me give you from past experience. What happens if I walk up to a job and I find out that another contractor was there and the other contractor damaged the equipment? I don't get involved in that crap, okay? Because as a business owner, it turns into a headache, okay? So plain and simply, I don't get involved in the politics. I walk up to the customer. I say, oh no, the copper's missing. Don't know what happened. I give them a quote, or I do the repair and I give them the bill and I move on. Okay, in my experience, when you start bringing stuff up to the customer, hey man, you need to go through your insurance, or hey, you need to go after the other contractor, guess what happens? I typically don't get paid until the other party pays the customer. So I prefer not even to get involved in the politics. What happens next? I have no idea. I just hand them my bill, hope they pay it on time, and move on. How often, I already answered this one, but how often is this happening here where customers are or where, you know, thieves are coming in and breaking into copper? I already said it. Once every 2 years at that location, they have something going on. It doesn't happen very often. Now, what's interesting is very recently, we used to have a huge problem with copper theft when the copper prices went sky high. Our local government got involved and started requiring all the scrap yards to really scrutinize the people that were bringing in scrap copper. And they had all kinds of rules. And what actually used to happen then was you would go to trade in some copper, because I usually keep copper. I have a big barrel of it and I take it in, you know, once or twice a year. And I'll take in a big barrel of copper, and then they would say, okay, we're going to have to send you a check in the mail, or you can come back in 2 days and get your money. They don't do that anymore. It actually blew my mind. It'd been a while since I've taken copper in, and I just took some in probably about 2 months ago, and they gave me cash on the spot. I wasn't wearing a work uniform. There's another caveat too. If you're a contractor, they'll give you the money right away if you show them a contractor's license. But I didn't have any of that stuff with me. I just went in, and they gave me the money right away. So that kind of leads me to believe that the scrap yards are not being as meticulous with that anymore. And it's probably going to lead to more copper theft, because if they're not really scrutinizing the tweakers that are bringing the copper in, then maybe it's going to continue to happen. Let me see. Oh, and I wanted to bring up the point too that, like, you know, even at my own house, my trash day is on Monday, and I have to freaking scream at the damn guy that goes through my trash can all the time, because there's a guy that comes in and takes all the plastic out of my trash can, and I always go out there and try to kick his ass. Get out of my trash can. Get out of here. You know, he stopped coming to my house because he knows I'll go out there and scream at him. Tell him to get out of my trash. I don't need him in there. So as far as a technical question goes, so Jason had asked me about 448A refrigerant. So here in California, we've been using 448A, or at least I have, for a little over a year and a half now. So as the new, you know, mandates go across the United States, and, you know, the refrigerant regulations and all this different stuff, a lot of people are having to get introduced into 448A, 449, whatever one you choose. And a lot of people are afraid of the refrigerants, okay, because it has a high glide. There's a lot of like technical terms about these refrigerants that scares people. Oh my gosh, it's a high glide refrigerant. You're going to have all these problems and da 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 da. It's just another flavor of refrigerant, guys. There's nothing wrong with 448A, 449, whatever you choose to use, okay? You don't need to be concerned with all that stuff. Yes, there's things you need to kind of think about, like, okay, how does it affect performance and stuff like that? And there's sizing restrictions and stuff, but just do your research. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be fearful of. 448A, it's no big deal. Just make sure that your components are sized appropriately. Now, when it comes to retrofitting systems, existing systems to 448A or whatever, you need to do your due diligence, okay? Especially if you're retrofitting and changing the oil in the system from like mineral oil to a polyester oil, there's going to be some issues there. Chris Miller, thank you very much for that super chat, man. I really, really appreciate it. Chris Miller, send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com and I can give you some more feedback on your question. Okay, bud? Let's see, you're replacing with the heat pump, my thoughts. Yeah, send me an email. We can talk a little bit more about it, bud. So I lost my, with 448A. You know, there's really not too much to be afraid of, but when you're doing retrofits on existing refrigeration equipment and changing over to 448A, there's some things you really need to consider. Now, manufacturers will tell you that, you know, you can get away with using the same components, expansion valves, distributors, or nozzles in your distributors and stuff like that. And you can, okay? Oftentimes, if your expansion valve before was sized, you know, appropriately, when you change over to 448A, you may be able to make adjustments to the valve and it may work properly. But your best bet when you're doing a conversion to 448A from an existing system is to go ahead, do the calculations, pull the nozzle out in between the expansion valve and the distributor, put the correct nozzle in there if it needs to be changed, and size your expansion valve appropriately, okay? You do need to use a power head that's basically made for R22. That's pretty much because the pressure temperature relationship is pretty close to R22. So they're actually using R22 medium temperature power heads for 448 and 449, same as 407C. And your valve may need to be adjusted appropriately, okay? So keep that in mind, but it's nothing to be afraid of. It works the same. It's just another flavor of refrigerant. Don't worry about pressures, okay? When it comes to any flavor, stop focusing on pressures and start looking at temperatures. If you know you have a baseline on how your walk-in equipment is supposed to operate, just be concerned with temperatures. Do you want to run a 10-degree TD on the evaporator? Do you want to maintain 35 degrees in the box? If you're running a 10-degree TD, then your saturation temperature should be about 25 degrees. Don't worry about a pressure, okay? Just look at the temperatures. Same thing on the roof when it comes to your condensing temp, okay? That's why it's so important when you're starting up equipment, new installs and things, that you write down all the information. What's your condenser TD? What's your evaporator TD? That way someone has a baseline to look at from in the future, okay? So keep that in mind. It really does help you when you're dealing with some of these new refrigerants. Let's see. Oh, good question. So in the video where I was there at nighttime, of course, and, you know, the copper was all stolen. Of course, you know, we had some issues and it was late and, you know, you guys saw where I went to go start it up and there was no low pressure control because the capillary had broken off. That kind of stuff happens. Just take it one step at a time. But why, when I charged the system, did I dump all the gas into the receiver? So what I did was I front seated the king valve on the receiver. And when you front seat the king valve, the service port on there is open to the receiver, but not to the rest of the system. So I like to dump as much gas into the receiver first, so that way I can control the flow. Because I always try to charge into the high side first, but if I can, I prefer not to load the whole system, high and low, with refrigerant just sitting there. I prefer to dump it into the receiver just to modulate the startup and not flood the compressor with refrigerant coming back, okay? So usually what I do is I go ahead and open up the receiver, let it meter through the expansion valve and flow through the system naturally versus just dumping tons of refrigerant in there and having the system equalize out. Just a personal preference of mine, just that way it helps on startup. So let me get to the chat. What am I missing? Any CO2 coolers yet? No, I don't work on anything that's CO2. I've seen a few like soda coolers and stuff like that, but I haven't worked on anything. So Neil H., your question was next on my list. Neil H. asked me a question about what tool am I using to cut open compressors? So I've done a couple videos where I've done autopsies on compressors, pulled the heads off of them to figure out what's going on inside of them. Typically what I will use is a grinder, okay? And what I will do is score very slowly the outside shell of the compressor, nice and slow, really controlling the grinder So that way it doesn't go through and damage the inside of the compressor. And also that way it doesn't shoot the crap all inside the compressor and get stuck in the oil sump. Because when you're doing the autopsies on the compressor, you know, it's nice to know when you open them up, if there's metal all in the oil, then it helps you to understand, hey, maybe there was a mechanical failure, something happened. But was that because you were just cutting it open with a grinder and shooting all the crap inside the compressor? So it's just a slow process. I just use a grinder and go nice and slow all the way around, just slowly scoring the edge until it's almost about ready to break. And then just hit it very lightly. So it just takes time. So just a grinder and lots of time is what I use to cut them open. I've done a lot of compressors, and once you've done a few of them, you start to learn where to cut them and where you're safe and where you won't damage things and how the compressors are assembled. So you get a little bit more comfortable with it. The first time you ever open up a compressor, you're just going to butcher everything. Just accept the fact that you're just going to tear the whole thing up. And then from that point forward, you'll start learning, hey, I shouldn't have cut there and that kind of stuff. I encourage everybody out there to cut components open whenever you can. It helps you to understand everything. If you guys have probably seen most of this stuff, but I like to cut all kinds of components open. This is a head pressure and LAC valve that I took a bandsaw to and just cut right down. I disassembled it because it's got mechanical components, disassembled it, and cut it in half. I actually went through like 3 of these valves before I got it perfect, and then put it back together so that way I could show my techs, hey, this is how a head pressure control valve works, an LAC valve. And I got the same thing here with an expansion valve too, is I just disassembled a flare expansion valve right here and cut it open and then reassembled the pieces. So that way you can see the mechanical action of the expansion valve and how it works. So this kind of stuff really helps anybody. It doesn't have to be new. Like these happen to be new parts that I had in the shop that were just sitting there, but it doesn't have to be new parts. You can cut up old parts. There's nothing wrong with that. Anything you guys can do to learn better, go for it. Cut open compressors, cut open expansion valves, cut open dryers. I got a dryer right here. This is one that I cut open just very slowly with a grinder, so you can see the desiccant material inside of it. You know, I love doing that kind of stuff because it helps us to better understand how stuff works and how a dryer is assembled. You know, look at the mesh screen that's in a dryer. You know, there's a piece of fabric mesh and then there's a screen behind it. You know, there's so much cool stuff about that. So I encourage everybody out there, just start cutting components open. That's something we can all do to learn better. Educate yourselves. It makes yourself more valuable for sure. Okay. Let me see what else we got going on in the chat in here. Does the tightness test on the S-Mans allow you to see it on the Measure Quick app? No. The Measure Quick app does not have a tightness test as of yet, but I'm sure if you send Jim Bergman an email, maybe he already has that on his list. I know he has a lot of things that he's working on, but maybe that's something he can do. The tightness test, if you're wondering, is a pressure test that uses suction line temperature to compensate for the pressure change that'll happen with nitrogen. So if you don't already know, there's a common misconception that nitrogen is a gas, okay, which it is, but there's a misconception that nitrogen is a gas that never changes pressure. That is absolutely incorrect. The simple fact that it's a gas tells you that it changes pressure as it changes state, okay? A gas is going to change. There's no way that it doesn't change pressure. So everybody calls it an inert gas and all this stuff. Now, I will say nitrogen has very small pressure changes, but it does change pressure, okay, based off of temperature. So the tightness test basically takes the suction line temperature and it compares it and gives you, it helps you to understand if your gas pressures change. Like, let's say you're doing a pressure test and you come in the afternoon and you pressurize it to something and you come back the next morning and your pressure is low. Well, it's cold outside. Your suction line's colder. The pressure of the nitrogen is going to go down as it gets colder outside. Okay, so it's not necessarily just because there's a leak. Okay, so lots of manifolds, even the new Testo app. Well, the Testo manifold I think was one of the first that did a tightness test. But yeah, I don't think Measure Quick, or actually I know Measure Quick doesn't do it yet. But maybe send Measure Quick an email and ask them about it. I'm sure they'll do it. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Let me see. Why is 440 tagged on my video? Number 440 tagged on my video. I don't know. Where is number 440 tagged? I don't know what that means. Number 440. No idea. Yeah, I don't know. Why do I work on semi-hermetic compressors often? Not as often as I used to. It's pretty rare that I come across semi-hermetics anymore in the small stuff. So, yeah. Kevin Pfeiffer. Did I have the shits on Friday? I don't think I had the shits. Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, it happens all the time. So, let's see what else. Number 440 is the amount of likes for Chris to say Chingus. All right. Let me see what else we got in here. You're a welder and you're looking to get into HVAC. Any advice? Find a good place that'll hire you as an apprentice, okay? Then get involved in some sort of an educational program, whether it be private or public. I tend to prefer to push the public stuff just because I don't want to see someone spend a crap ton of money on a private education and decide that they don't want to do the trade. But what I would encourage people to do is go get enrolled in a public community college, take 1 or 2 classes. If it's something you think you're going to like, you know, great. If it's something you don't, you're only out a couple $100, right? Or if you're going to go to a private college, make sure that there's some sort of a policy that you can get your money back if you don't continue the program. I just hate for someone to go spend 18 grand or whatever it is for a private college and then not go through with the program. So be cautious about that. I'm not saying that private schools aren't good, because I'm sure they will. When do I replace vans in the fleet? We like to see about 150 to 200,000 miles out of a vehicle before we start considering replacement. After about 200,000 miles, when you have multiple vehicles, they become a liability. And there's nothing worse than needing a technician to show up on a job site because he's scheduled somewhere and his van breaks down. So we use the Chevy Express vans, and we find that at the 200,000 mile mark is when we really start to think about replacing that van and start considering replacement options. So for us, it's pretty, the way that we ride the vehicles and maintain them, it's pretty safe to say that you start to see transmission problems within 150,000 to 200,000 miles, and you start to see engine failures within 200 to 300,000 miles is when we start having to see that. And we take care of our vans. We run synthetic oil. We do oil changes every 10,000 miles with the synthetic. We keep them up to date, but just, you know, they get worn hard, basically, or ridden hard, kind of. All right. Let's see what else we got in here. Can I have a trailer with my company name on it filled with condenser fan motors? I actually have a trailer with my company name on it, but no, not filled with condenser fan motors. Let me see what else. Can I explain P-traps on the evaporators for walk-ins, when to use them, when not to use them? Anytime the evaporator is below the condenser, it's safe bet I put a P-trap on the system. Now, there's piping practices, proper piping practices, PPP, yeah, proper piping practices. There you go. That say that any rise above, I don't know, 20 feet, 15 feet or something like that, you should do a P-trap. But the concept of a P-trap is if the oil ever gets out of the compressor and makes it downstairs to the evaporator, it's damn near impossible to get that oil back up if you don't have the pipe or the refrigeration lines piped properly, okay? So a suction line P-trap is there to increase the velocity of the refrigerant. So the refrigerant flows, let's say it's carrying oil, and it hits that trap, and it goes and it slings up when it hits that. It creates some kind of a magic effect, right? It's voodoo magic crap. But when it hits the P-trap, it pushes, or it helps to get the oil and speeds up the velocity of the refrigerant to help bring the oil back up to the roof, okay? Proper piping practices are going to tell you to put a P-trap downstairs, put a P-trap upstairs, so that way once it makes it up, it has to go down. There's a reverse trap, and it traps the oil up onto the roof, okay? I don't do reverse traps very often because I find that my line sets are usually pretty small. Half the time, I don't even think I need to be installing P-traps, but I do just for a safe practice downstairs. But if you open up a Copeland service manuals right back here, these are old manuals, but they're actually very valuable. The refrigeration manuals right here. Let's see. This one right here, Refrigeration Manual Part 4, System Design, has lots of information on how to properly size. This is an old manual, but it's still very relevant. How to properly size refrigeration lines to bring up velocity. There's diagrams right there showing inverted traps onto the roof, different stuff like that for proper piping. So these Copeland manuals will give you a kind of an understanding on proper piping practices for sure. That's a tongue twister, right? All right, let me see what else we got going on in here. Let's see. You shouldn't be by... Oh, I don't even know what that says. You did some apprenticeship for your uncle when you were 18, so you know a little... Oh, okay, all right. I'm reading into a conversation going on. What will I be having for dinner later? Good question. What is my wife making for dinner? My wife, she told me and I already forgot. Oh, some sort of a pasta dish with sausage and different things like that in it. All right. Let's see. Someone's talking about boots. I used Timberland Pro boots. Like them forever. Hey, concept. I've thought about doing this by myself, but maybe it's something we can do with the new tools channel. I thought about doing boots, like ordering a couple different pairs of boots and kind of saying what I like about them. But the problem with boots, though, is that, you know, that's a very personal thing. Like, you know, there's things that I like about Timberland Pros that maybe you wouldn't like. So I don't know. I've always kind of had a hard time with boot reviews because everybody's different. You have wide feet, you have, you know, whatever. So it's a hard one. Hey, if you guys haven't already, please consider checking out my website, hvacrvideos.com. Merch available. We got these shirts. We got hats, beanies, sweaters. This is the original. This is actually my favorite shirt. This one right here is the Big Picture Diagnoses, and this is actually my favorite color because it has kind of an 80s surf retro kind of a color scheme to it. You can see it says Big Picture Diagnoses on. That was the first original shirt design. So check out the website, hvacrvideos.com, if you haven't already and if you're interested. 440 is the tag. I don't know what 440 is, dude. I have no idea what that is, man. All right, let me see what else we got going on here. Have I worked on CO2? No, I have not worked on CO2. So let's see. What else we got in here? All right, I am going through the chat, seeing what I'm missing. Seeing if I'm missing anything in here. Would I please explain what is a neutral wire? Thank you. Well, probably not the best person to explain that. Yeah, I'm not going to give the right explanation for a neutral. I'm not the smartest person when it comes to electrical terminology. Go to hvacrschool.com. Brian will probably have a good explanation. Or look up Electrician U on YouTube. He does some great stuff on electrical explanations and stuff too. So, oh, Clint Glasgow says Measure Quick does a temperature compensated test. See, then maybe there's something I don't know about Measure Quick. Interesting. I'll have to look into that, Clint. I don't know that I've ever really paid attention to that, but if I am incorrect, I've been corrected. So, let's see. Oh, okay, got you. YouTube thinks I'm applying that as a hashtag to my videos, 440. Oh, yeah, I'll have to look into that. Yeah, my mailing address is suite number 440. That's in my videos, so I got you. All right. Do I carry a flashlight in my pocket every day or something I always carry? Yeah, and I'm actually going to be doing an everyday carry video with the new tools channel, HVACR Tools. So I'm going to keep plugging that channel until you guys are nauseated by the plugs for HVACR Tools. So please go check out the channel, subscribe to it. I'm going to put a link to it right now. But yeah, I do carry a flashlight and I carry a Leatherman with me every day. So, all right, let's see what else. Yeah, Electrician U is a great electrical channel. Guys, there's so much information on YouTube. So much great information. And I like Electrician U because the cool thing is he's a real tech, right? He's not just some engineer that sits in there and just preaches crap. Like, he's a real tech, and you could tell he has good explanations, but you can also tell that he knows how to do this stuff, and he makes mistakes and stuff like that, and I find that to be amazing about any YouTube channel that shows imperfections, right? And I love Electrician U because he just gives great explanations about things. So let me see what else we got in here. Yeah, Sean S. All you do see is pants on the video on the YouTube channel because I haven't uploaded anything else. But the Testo review's coming next. So, Mitchell Johnston, am I busy? No, we're extremely slow right now. So, all right, let's see what else. Vito is giving away bags when you buy a tier 1 or tier 2 bag. Yeah, I'd like to know because I just spent a crap ton of money with Vito buying a bunch of bags. So, what was my biggest mistake early in my career? Biggest mistake early in my career? Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you one. So there was one, I probably told this before, but okay, of course, this was before 1992, before it was illegal to vent refrigerants, okay? Before 1992. I was standing on a ladder working on an ice machine. I didn't know any better, okay, when I was younger, and I was taught to go ahead and just slowly vent the charge. This was before we used recovery machines or anything like that, okay? Before 1992 or whenever the date was that was the law about venting refrigerants, okay? And I was releasing the refrigerant from an ice machine, standing on a ladder, and I started when I was indoors. It was the stupidest thing I could ever do, right? Because I was never taught correctly in the very beginning. And I was standing indoors, and that refrigerant was being released, right? And all of a sudden, the whole kitchen started coughing and like choking. And I'm standing up on this ladder, and I'm looking down at everybody going, what the hell are they doing? Like, oh, their eyes are watering, and it's like, what's going on, And so I step off the ladder, and it hits me. Okay, what had happened was the refrigerant that was being released from that ice machine before it was illegal, right, hit a flame. And then it was like phosgene. It traveled all across the kitchen and was suffocating everybody. We had to open up the back doors of the building. We stopped releasing the refrigerant, and we cleared the air out. But yeah, that was a very, very life-learning mistake, was don't vent refrigerant before the legal date and, let it hit a flame or something like that. That was scary. Learned some things like that. So, let's see what else we got going on in here. What supply house do I have out by me? United Refrigeration, Allied Refrigeration, and RSD, Refrigeration Supplies Distributors, are my main supply houses. So, do I have dispatchers that send me calls or just me? Myself and my dad run the company together. So typically my dad is in the office. The calls go to him. He'll dispatch them to me, and then he'll call me and say, hey, we've got these calls. Who should I send? And then, we'll kind of discuss it and figure out who we're going to send. But the calls, we're a small company. So it's myself and my dad running it. And then we have 3 other service techs and an office person working with us. So, would Bruce Willis love to work in HVACR videos if he was or wasn't an actor? I don't even know about that one. Love to work in... Yeah, I don't even know what you mean by that question, but all right. Did I think I would make it this far in YouTube? Oh, no, I never even... The whole YouTube thing started with me making videos for my own employees. It was in 2017. November of 2017 was when I started my channel. No idea that it would ever turn into anything like this. I just thought I was going to make videos for my employees as a training aid. That's all. And I was nervous when I hit the public button and it went public, and it just it turned into this machine, and I'm very humbled by it all. The 98 DeVille, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. I really, really appreciate it. Let's see what else we got in here. Everyone is guilty of venting. Of course, before it was illegal venting, okay? We all vented before the 1992 deadline or whatever the date is. It's been so long since I've taken my EPA certification. I don't even remember when it became illegal. So, Adam Spears, Blue On app, is it good to use? I've opened the Blue On app one time. I've never opened it anymore, so I can't say whether or not it's a good app to use or not. I hear a lot of people say good things about the Blue On app, so I would encourage you to check it out. I did register for it and took a silly online test, and then I think they call it their accreditation process, and then you got access to the app, and it's not even on my phone anymore, so I don't even know. I looked at it and just didn't use it again, but nothing bad to say about it. All right. Let's see. Zach Ciota's in here. Hey, bud, how you doing? Is it okay if you yell de minimis during venting? It's okay. Yeah, no. All right. So I have apprentices working for me. No, but I have one guy that's not, doesn't do service calls as much. He's more of a maintenance guy and does installs and stuff with me. But I don't really have an apprentice per se right now. I probably need to hire an apprentice, but just haven't done that process yet because we're still in the middle of this virus crap. All right, let's see what else. Manitowoc or Hoshizaki, and why? Both of them. Hoshizaki is something that I grew up with. The cool thing about Hoshizakis is, you know, it used to be that you could damn near weld the door shut and it'd be good for a year. It would just run and be really dirty inside. I would say that Manitowoc ice machines, I'm very comfortable working on them, but they tend to be a little bit more finicky when they get dirty, so they have to be cleaned a lot more often. I'm not saying a Hoshi shouldn't be cleaned often. It should, but Hoshizakis tend to last a lot longer without cleaning, mechanically, I should say. They're still nasty inside. Every ice machine should be cleaned at least every 3 months, but they aren't. But I would have to say Hoshizaki probably. The downside to Hoshizaki is the parts are expensive. You have a water pump failure, it's going to cost the customer anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 for a water pump replacement with labor. So those water pumps aren't cheap. And water pump failures are high on the list of things with the Hoshizakis. The Manitowocs tend to be a little bit more inexpensive to repair for most of the components that fail on them. So, you know, it's kind of a give and take, but really it's about what you're comfortable with, okay? You know, I'm comfortable with Manitowocs and Hoshizakis, but if you throw me in front of a Scotsman or an Isomatic, I get flustered because I don't work on them every day. So, you know, it's a little bit more about what you're used to working on and what you're comfortable with, okay? So, all right. Let's see. What do I want to use? I don't even know what that's about. Let's see. Can I please tell you what is the best multimeter? Again, it's about your preference, bud. There's no best. I'm not here to tell you what the best. I'm not pushing any one particular product. I personally use a lot of Field Piece products, but I also have Fluke products, okay? I like the Field Piece stuff because it's smaller, but the reliability and the functionality, you know, if you're an industrial electrician and you're doing some really heavy, intense measurements and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't say the Field Piece is the brand for that, okay? But there's nothing wrong with Field Piece. It's just they're more designed for the HVAC industry. If you're going to be doing a lot of, you know, heavy-duty electrical work, you may want to look more into a higher-end brand like a Fluke or something higher than that if you're doing crazy precise measurements. So it's really about what you're comfortable and what your needs are. So, all right. Do I own the company where I work? Yes. All right. Union or non-union? Thoughts on both? I have no opinion either way. It's what's best for you and your own. Here in Southern California, the unions are not very strong, okay? There is union companies, and I do have friends that work for union companies, and they're happy. They're very happy. But you're not going to be doing restaurant refrigeration in the union, okay? It's just not going to happen. The restaurants won't go for those prices. In the union work, you're going to be doing more educational, institutional, and government work in the state of California, okay? Now, you go to places like Chicago, New York City, different places like that, you might see a heavier presence in the union, so it might be more beneficial for you to lean that way, okay? But it really depends on what you want to work on. I'm not a person that says you're horrible because you work for a union or you're not horrible. Either way, it's really about what's best for you and your own. You need to protect yourself and you need to speak to your family and decide, you know, the union's going to give me better benefits, but I'm going to get paid less, or, you know, vice versa. So it really is on you. And I'm sorry to give that kind of an answer, but it really is true. Okay. Again, it's not me that's going to get in here and say, go union because, you know, push the union. I'm not going to do that either way. So, all right. Let me see what else we got going in here. Mega ohm meters. Adam Spears. I personally don't own a mega ohm meter or an insulation tester. I've thought about picking one up just because I'm curious, but it's not really something that I need per se. I am considering the Fluke 1587. That is a ridiculously expensive insulation tester. But when it comes to something like a mega ohm meter, I'm probably going to go big and get something high quality. Now, you know, Field Piece makes a mega ohm meter. There's Supco makes mega ohm meters and different things like that. But I tend on something like that. I think I'd like to go a little bit more high end. But there's something you need to understand. Look up just look up Copeland compressor insulation tester. Copeland compressor mega ohm readings. Okay, there's a tech bulletin from Copeland compressors from the mid 90s, I think. And they talk about insulation tests with Copeland compressors and how insulation tests can be affected by moisture in the system and different things like that. An insulation test or a mega ohm reading is really meant to be something that is paid attention to over a long period of time. It's not supposed to be you're out there on a service call, you put a mega ohm meter on there, the light says bad, so oh my God, I got to change that compressor. Did you know that the light can say bad if you have a lot of moisture in your system too? So it doesn't necessarily mean, so you have to understand how a mega ohm meter works. Copeland actually says, hey, mega ohm meters are good if used over a long period of time, looking at trends and paying attention. So if you didn't know, you can use a mega ohm meter to tell you if you have moisture in your system too. So mega ohm meters, another tool, or insulation testers are another great tool in the arsenal, but is it something that I personally need? No. Am I going to go buy mega ohm meters for every one of my service techs? No, because it doesn't really fit my business, you know, and how we do work and stuff. So why don't I use dyes for hard to find leaks? I have used dye in the past, but honestly, it just pisses me off. If you get a good leak detector, you can usually find the leaks, and or the leak will present itself over time. My personal preference, dyes tend to piss me off because that dye gets all over everything. It gets stuck in my gauges. It sprays. Once you use dye on one system, your gauges are going to put dye in the next system, and the next, it's just a pain in the ass. So I'm just not a fan of using dye, but nothing against anybody that uses dye. Okay. It's good if it's good for you. I just don't prefer to use them. I use, the most common leak detector that I've used for like the past 10 years was the D-Tech Select. And it does a great job at finding leaks. If I can't find a leak, I pressurize the system with nitrogen and make the leak. I mean, you know, if there's a weak spot or a really small leak, you put enough nitrogen in it, you're going to make that leak bigger, makes it easier to find. Okay. So my personal preference is I prefer not to use dye or any additives in the system that didn't already come in the system. So, let's see what else we got in here. Covfefe, Covfefe. Thank you very much for that super chat, bud. That is awesome, and that was very generous of you. How often do I see weird mounting locations for condensers, like at that mall parking lot? And what would cause them to not have a rooftop install? So that mall parking lot, the rooftop on top of that building is 5 stories up. Okay. So if you think about an ice machine, that exceeds the line set length for an ice machine install. 5 stories high. That's ridiculously high. So the restaurant is on the bottom floor of that building, and there's a giant movie theater on top of that. So that's why they installed it in the parking garage and have all the condensers out there. So how often do I see that? Not very often at all. That is my only location that has a really weird installation like that. Just really strange. But hey, in refrigeration, you come across that stuff. So that's why they installed that. They have an air conditioner out there. They have all the refrigeration equipment, and they have their ice machine equipment out there. All right. What else do we got in here? Have I considered getting certified in air balancing? Cyborg Sheep. Yeah, it's something that I'm interested in, but I don't have the technician base nor the work base to keep going with air balancing. So if I was to get certified in air balance, it would be just for a novelty, for my own, you know, curiosity, just to be able to understand it more. At this point in time, I'm not going to offer air balancing as a service of my business. There's other big companies in my area that do offer air balancing, and the air balancing is a very small portion of their business. Basically, I make my money fixing reaching coolers, self-contained, ice makers, walk-in coolers, and exhaust fans. My customers aren't so concerned with air balance, and it's very rare that they actually hire air balance companies. So, it's something that sounds fun to me and I'm curious about, but I just don't know if it would ever be financially beneficial for me. But I might still do it. Any advice for slow season side jobs? Be very careful doing side jobs, okay? We're going through the slow season right now here in Southern California. And just let me ask you this. When you're doing a side job, what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if this sounds crazy, but what happens if when you're backing up to the job, you hit someone? Whose insurance is going to cover that? What happens if you fall off a ladder on a side job and you hurt your back? Guess what? Your insurance for your business Workers' comp is not going to cover that. Okay. You got to make sure, you need to be very careful about doing side work, because if you're working for a legal, legit business, they have insurances and things that cover that kind of stuff. But if you get hurt on a side job, you're on your own, bud. So that can get very dangerous. So be very careful doing side work. All right. Are there differences in performance between fan cycle controls and head pressure bypass? Yes. Fan cycle controls, especially on single condenser fan motor systems, can be very tricky. Okay. So you have a head pressure control valve that is a nice, even, slow bypass pressure. It's very easy on the system. But if you have a fan cycling control and it just shuts off the condenser fan motor, your head pressure drives up, especially in mild climates. We're in Southern California, where our winters typically are 50 degrees and our summers are 120 degrees. So we have a very mild winter. So what happens is, it's cold outside. For us, cold is 50 degrees. Okay, I understand we don't know what cold is, but when it's 50 degrees outside, all of a sudden your head pressure drops below the cutout pressure of the fan cycle control, turns off the condenser fan motor, but within 25 seconds, your condenser fan motor's running again. And then, I don't know, a minute later, turns off again. And then 25 seconds, it's running again. And what happens, if you ever see a fan cycle control turn the condenser fan motor off, pay attention to your sight glass and watch what happens. Your sight glass is going to drain, okay? And then it's going to slowly build back up, and then it's going to drain, and then it's going to slow. That draining sight glass is what's being sent to your refrigerant or to your expansion valve. Expansion valves, they don't work properly with vapor refrigerant. So fan cycling on single condenser fan motor systems can be very violent on the system. In my opinion, a head pressure control valve, if properly installed and properly sized, that has the proper refrigerant charge, is going to be less violent and better for the system. Okay. Now, when you have multiple condenser fan motors, it's a little bit easier to use fan cycling, because you can stage the condenser fan motors at different pressures to where one cuts out and then the other one slowly cuts out 50 PSI later and so forth. It can be a little bit better to cycle fans that way, but on single condenser fan motors, I highly suggest head pressure control valves. Do fan cycle controls work? Yes, they do. Okay. They do work, but it's just a little bit more violent on the system. I'm a big fan of head pressure control valves. For more information about head pressure control valves, look up the Sporlan Tech. Just Google search Sporlan 90-30. Okay. And then also 90-31 and then 90-30-1. All three of those, just look up Sporlan 90-30, 90-31, and you'll get lots of great information on charging systems, sizing systems, how to calculate flooded charges, all that stuff, okay? All right. Opinions on the difference between the DTEC Stratus and Select from Infocon. Okay, good question. So Infocon has 2 leak detectors that they're pushing right now for standard refrigerants. They have the DTEC 3 and they have the Infocon Stratus, okay? My understanding, the DTEC 3 is replacing the DTEC Select, okay? The DTEC Select was their flagship leak detector for years. It is now replaced by the DTEC 3. The Infocon Stratus is the DTEC 3 with a parts per million readout display, okay? Understand something. When the leak detector is in parts per million mode, it is actually less sensitive than the high sensitivity reading, okay, of the normal operation. So if you're not going to be using the parts per million readout and the cloud hunting function, okay, you might want to look at the DTEC 3, all right, because it's the same leak detector, just doesn't have the cloud hunting and the parts per million readout. It's a great leak detector. I personally own the Infocon Stratus, which is the fancier one with the parts per million readout, but I've never used the parts per million readout. The DTEC or the Infocon Stratus, I want to say is like $800, okay? And I want to say the DTEC 3 is like $600. So there's a sizable price difference. So if you don't need the fancy parts per million readout, you might want to go for the DTEC 3, save yourself a couple bucks, and you're still going to have an amazing leak detector. That's just my opinion. All right. Let me see what else we got. Have I ever considered a training tour across the states or even virtual? Oh man, you know what? I should do an online sales class where, no, I'm just kidding. So I don't know. I mean, what would I go across the country for to sell people, I mean, that they can't already see in my videos. I don't know. I don't know. I guess maybe training people on how to look at the big picture, but I'm not a salesperson, so I would never be trying to preach any kind of sales and crap like that. But I guess maybe, but I don't think there would ever be a market for me to go across the country and sell people, have people pay me to come and I don't think that would be a sustainable thing. Nobody would want to pay me to come to their locations or anything like that. All right. What do I set my low pressure control for? Shut off and on. Same for high pressure control. It really depends on the refrigerant. Okay. You need to look at the refrigerant and the saturation temperatures. There's a lot that goes into setting a low pressure control. Okay. You need to know how cold the box is going to be, the space that's being cooled. Let's say you're dealing with a walk-in cooler. All right. You have to set the cut-in pressure, right? And you have to pay attention to the space temperature inside the box, because if it's 35 degrees in the box and it turns on at 40, you have to have enough pressure change in the system when you open up the solenoid valve for that refrigerant to go all the way upstairs. Same thing with the ambient conditions outside. If it's really cold outside, you have to know that when you're setting a pressure control. So it really depends on the refrigerant and the ambient and the space temperatures. And the same thing goes for the high side pressure. You need to look at the compressor manufacturer. You need to find out what the operating envelope of that compressor is. Then you need to find what your outdoor ambient maximum temperatures are and set the pressure control accordingly. So I know I didn't give you an answer, but it's really a loaded question because it really depends on where you're located. All right. Let's see. What would I recommend you do after high school before going into the trade? Your dad knows a guy that can train me. Should I have him train me or go to trade school? He's a senior tech. Joshua, I would highly suggest if you have someone willing to train you that you jump on board with that. But I would suggest you get involved in a local community college and take night classes after a normal day's work. If you can go apprentice with someone and potentially get paid, right, and be a helper and learn from them, then you can go to school at nighttime 2-3 days a week at the community college, learn there while you're working out in the field. That's ideal. That's how I did it. I would highly suggest anybody that can do that for themselves too. All right, let's see what else we got in here. If I miss any of your guys' questions or there's any topics you guys want to talk to me further about, please send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, okay? And we can talk about it more. So if I'm sure there's stuff that I missed in here, please send me that email, guys. All right, at what point do I know it's time to branch out on your own? Tony, so business ownership is a very stressful thing at times, okay? I'm going to tell you right off the bat that I am not a good business owner. I don't handle stress well. I like to know that things are working the way that I like them to work. And I like to make sure that my employees treat my customers like I would treat them every single day. So as a business owner, you have problems that you have to be able to overcome. And I don't do good at overcoming not having control over the way that people do things. Like, for instance, did they pull the evacuation correctly? Did they repair did they diagnose it correctly? Is there going to be callbacks? Did they talk to the customer? Did they coach the customer? All this different stuff. And it's stuff that you need to train your employees for. So running a business has two major aspects, in my opinion. You have the business aspect and you have the service aspect. You need to be an amazing service technician. You need to understand the business and you need to be a business person and understand the numbers. So do I encourage people to try to start their own businesses? Of course, but I want you to be prepared. Be prepared for the craziness that will ensue when times get tight and work gets slow, like this pandemic, and you got no work, but you have 3 people working for you. How do you keep them employed? What do you do? How do they get their hours? How do you keep them from going to work for someone else? Those are all things that you have to think about. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about starting a business because I'm probably a bitter person when it comes to that, because I live my life stressed because I run a business and it's crazy. It's good at times, but it's crazy at other times too. So I don't know that I really answered that question for you, but have I seen a fan cycle control going way too violent on the system? Yeah. How often do I get recognized by my subscribers? You also subscribe if you have not. I'd say about once a month, I might be in a supply house or something and someone will walk up to me and say hi. So it doesn't happen all too often. Every once in a while I get an email that says, hey, I saw you, but I didn't want to say hi. I always encourage people, if you guys see me out in the field, if you see me somewhere, stop me and say hey. Oftentimes I have a one-track mind, so I'm not paying attention to my surroundings. So if someone's like looking at me, I tend to just focus on what I'm doing and keep walking. So say, hey, Chris, you know, and stop me and talk to me for a minute. I'm cool with it. So let's see what else. Why is it necessary to have a P-trap on a suction line? Because it helps increase refrigerant velocity going back up to the roof to help return any potential oil that might have gotten stuck in the evaporator. So refrigerant velocity is a huge thing, getting that gas back to the compressor. Two reasons: the refrigerant cools the compressor, but also it carries oil with it. So we need to make sure that that oil doesn't get trapped in the evaporator section and get it back to the condensing unit or compressor. So a P-trap is simply used to increase the refrigerant velocity to help with oil return. Have I seen, I already answered that one. Do you feel comfortable going to San Fernando because you get my Coke? And that's why I didn't bring my gun. Yeah, I don't go to San Fernando very much at all. So, oh, San Bernardino, I got what you're saying, but that makes sense. Okay, I read that one now. So he's saying, do I feel comfortable going to San Bernardino because I get my Coke there, and that's why I didn't bring my gun? That's pretty funny. All right. Let's see. Have I seen a condenser fan motor fall out of the No, I have not. Have I ever been electrocuted on the job by faulty wiring? No. I've been shocked by 120 volts before, typically from me working on a live system and I'm not being careful and I get shocked, but I've never been shocked by anything more than 120 volts. So, why don't walk-ins have filters on the evaporator? Kevin, that's a really interesting question. And I actually got a really awesome educator. If you guys haven't already, I'm going to give the moderators a challenge right now. Actually, no, I'll look it up because I know him right now. So there's a really cool YouTube channel. Hold on just a second. And it's an educator. His name is Ty Brannaman. Okay. Forgive me if I butchered his name. Ty has a really cool YouTube channel. He's worked at a bunch of different schools. He does a great job explaining things. I'm going to post Ty's channel in here right now. Okay. I want you guys to go subscribe to Ty's channel and blow up his numbers. Get him some crazy subscribers right now. Okay, guys. So Ty Brannaman, go subscribe to his channel. He has lots of great information on education with HVAC. Okay. But anyways, long story. Ty, and tell him I sent you guys over there. Okay. Just let him know that you're subscribing because I told you to. So Ty asked me a question, the same question the other day, Kevin, and he said, hey, why don't we have filters on walk-in coolers? He probably was watching one of my videos where the walk-in cooler evaporator was plugged up. And I told him, I said, look, I said, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but my first thoughts when you want to put a filter on an evaporator for a walk-in cooler is, number one, they were never designed to have dirt on the evaporators. Okay. If they're used properly, the door is only open to go in and out of the box and they'll have curtains on it or something like that. But also inside of a walk-in cooler is you're going to have moisture in the system. Okay. So whatever filter you put on that system, you would have to make sure it's not going to disintegrate because of the moisture and it's going to have some sort of a frame. The next thing you're going to have to think about is the airflow reduction or the pressure drop across that filter. And is it going to cause problems with the evaporator fan motors? So walk-in coolers were never designed for filters. Therefore, if we put a filter on one of them, you're going to run into all kinds of problems. Now, if the system was designed properly and you put like a metal mesh filter across it and the evaporator motors were sized accordingly, sure, it could work. And yes, it could filter the air. But if the kitchen staff and the cooks just did their job right and shut the door when they came in, there'd be no need for a filter. So we have to worry about the static pressure drop across that filter, the strain that it's going to put on the motors, you know, and the moisture potential that we have to ruin that filter and clog it up. Plus, you're going to have to change that filter quite often. I'd say more than once a month because, you know, they're leaving the door open and all that crap. So that's my 2 cents on why we don't put filters on there, is just because of those issues. So, Laska, do I really want you to go over there? Let's be real. Yeah, Ty's a great guy. I like him. Go check it out. How would I feel working for someone who has no field experience? How would I feel working for someone who has no... I couldn't handle working for someone who has no field experience. Did I take the C20? No, I did not take the C20. My dad is still the license holder. Can I oversize a line set? Yes, you can oversize a line set. And again, we want proper refrigerant velocity going through that line set. So if we oversize a line set, we're not going to get proper velocity going through, and we're potentially not going to have proper oil return going through. So we don't want to undersize a line set, because then you're going to have a high pressure drop across it. But then you also don't want to oversize a line set, because you're not going to have proper refrigerant velocity. The refrigerant's not going to move fast enough through the system to get back to the compressor to cool it off. So refrigerant lines have to be sized appropriately, for sure. Chris Miller, thank you so much for becoming a channel supporter, bud. Do my customers watch my videos? Some of them do, yes. Let's see. I'm assuming someone asked about a book, because I see Jessica Egan saying my favorite book is Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians, and that is true. Although I haven't had a chance to really sit down and read it, but I also got this new book right here, Review of Vacuum for Service Engineers. This is a book that was already existing, but Jim Bergman and Brian Orr both had a hand in rewriting this. I think Brian Orr did a lot of the animations, and then I think Jim Bergman kind of adjusted a few things. But this is a cool little book. I'm currently just getting ready to start reading this one. But Commercial Refrigeration by Air Conditioning, or for Air Conditioning Technicians by Dick Wurz, is my favorite book, and I would highly suggest, if you don't have that book, check that book out. The show notes of this live stream will have a link to that book. So, all right. What kind of filters do I recommend using on a high volume AC system? That's a good question. That's real engineer speak right there. A high volume system is going to have to be engineered properly to handle a certain type of filter. So, you know, the biggest media filter you can put on there, the better, because that's going to have the smallest amount of pressure drop across it. But you still have to be very careful on high velocity systems, because they can't handle very much pressure drop at all. So you're going to need to talk to your design engineer for sure. I don't do any residential installations or high volume systems like that, whether it be commercial either. So I wouldn't be the person to recommend that, but that's some real engineer question. Look at Clive Mitchell's in here, bigclive.com. Hello, bud. How you doing, man? Clive has a great YouTube channel. I'm sure a lot of you are already subscribed, but if you haven't already, definitely go subscribe to Clive's YouTube channel. I know that's not why you're here, Clive, but give you a plug for it. Really cool channel there. Very engineer talk electronics review channel that Clive does. So, can I write a book? You will buy it. If I wrote a book, it would be poop stories or shit stories. And I don't know that anybody would buy that. So, let me see what else we got in here. Let's see. What am I missing inside here? What am I missing? Is ice machine school important? Ice machine school. I mean, if you're working on ice machines, for sure, because each manufacturer of every ice machine out there is going to have a certain way that their ice machine works, right? Ice machines, you know, we've got several different brands of ice machines. In my area, the most common ones are Hoshizaki, Isomatic, Scotsman, Follett, let's see, and a few Vote ice machines. Those are the most common ones. Each ice machine uses the same principle. You're just moving heat from one place to another, right? And in the process, you're freezing ice cubes. You're running water across an evaporator. You're turning water into ice, okay? But it's all about the defrost strategy, the control strategy. Each manufacturer has a different way of doing things to maintain efficiency and all that crap, okay? So each manufacturer, this is a Manitowoc service manual right here for Indigo Next Quiet Cube ice machines. I work on these a lot. And this is a Hoshizaki manual for 404A machines and 134A machines, flakers and cubers. Each manufacturer has a giant manual that has all the specific information for those ice machines. So any training you can get on any ice machine you're going to work on is definitely going to help you. Okay, just because you know how a refrigerator works doesn't mean you're going to do great when it comes to working on an ice machine. Different ice machine manufacturers have different stuff. Manitowoc ice machines use cool vapor to harvest the ice, okay? It's a little different than hot gas, or the Manitowoc Indigo machines, I should say. The Quiet Cube machines, they use cool vapor versus a traditional remote Manitowoc that uses hot gas. Hoshizaki uses hot gas. So everyone has a different control strategy, so you need to understand those. So any training you can do on that particular brand is going to help you. So yes, ice machine training school is very important because it's going to give you an understanding with that particular ice machine. Now, you're not going to find one school out there, at least any that I know of, that's going to train you on all brands, okay? You're going to need to lean on each one of those manufacturers to help you to understand how their ice machines work. The cool thing is most ice machine manufacturers publish online data for free. So guess what? I have this really cool Manitowoc book right here, but if you go to manitowoc-ice.com, you can download this in PDF format for free. Same thing with this Hoshizaki book. Download it in PDF format at hoshizakiamerica.com. So, you know, all you got to do is do some research, okay? If you want to know how a certain refrigerator works, just Google it, okay? Your best friend is the Google, right? You have this tool with you at work. This is a very valuable tool because you can look up everything. You can take pictures. You can search manuals. I can have hundreds of these books weighing down my van, or I can have this one phone that has all those books on it. Your choice. All right, let's see what I got missing in here. Stack It Up. Thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. Best new walk-in refrigeration system from the factory. I mean, it's all about preference. Lately, I've really been digging the Russell condensing units, Russell Refrigeration, or HTPG, Heat Transfer Products Group. They make a great condensing unit. They make decent evaporators. I've been pushing a lot of Russell equipment lately. You know, that's just my personal preference. It's what I'm comfortable with. I do a lot of Heatcraft installations too. I'm not endorsing one or the other. I mean, they all have good things and bad things. The bad thing about the Heatcraft evaporators I run into all the time is on the EEV systems, the expansion valves don't automatically shut down sometimes when you power down the unit. So if a customer goes and turns off an evaporator because they're in the box, it floods the compressor out. Not all the time, but sometimes, okay? So but I love Heatcraft's equipment other than that. So, I mean, I don't have a preference for, you know, one brand over the other. It's just about what you're comfortable working on. So, all right, let's see what else. Have I worked on new split FVC? I don't know what that means, but no, I haven't worked on those, Laska. Let me see what else we got in here. What am I missing? Do I think it's right if there's 5 techs in a company, but only 2 work the on-call? John Peterson, you know, do I think it's right? I don't know all the details. I mean, I don't know. And the really cool thing about all of us is that we can choose to leave our companies and move on to the next company at any given time. We have the ability to move on. Yeah, there'll be some sacrifices if you jump ship and move to another company. But what do I know about the particular company that you're working for that only has 2 techs on call? I don't know the situation, you know, but the cool thing is that, you know, if you feel like you're being mistreated and if you feel like things aren't right, you do have the ability to move on. But just remember, sometimes there's a reason for things and the grass is not always greener on the other side. So make sure you do what's best for you and your own. That's the best advice I can give to anybody is weigh out the good and the bad stuff. Okay. And do what's best for you and your own. What's your new travel area going to be? Are you going to take your van home? What tools do they supply? There's a lot of variables that go into this, but the cool thing is that you have the choice. So, all right, let's see what else. The best systems are the ones that are installed and maintained properly. Peter Smart. Peter, that is an amazing comment, and that is so very true, okay? There's so many refrigeration, air conditioning, any kind of a system out there that people talk so much crap about, you know, insert name brand here that, oh my God, those are the worst units, okay? But most of the time, I would say, I'm going out on a limb, and I'm going to say most of the time, failures happen because of poor installations, okay? Now, I will say that sometimes manufacturers do make mistakes, and sometimes I know certain refrigeration manufacturers that make walk-in systems that have quick connect or AeroQuip fittings on them, so you don't have to do any kind of an evacuation. The line set is pre-charged, the evaporator's pre-charged, and the condenser's pre-charged. They tend to have a lot of problems with those. Do you know why? It's because those are marketed for self-installation. They're marketed to general contractors that don't have to hire a refrigeration technician. I happen to be on a warranty email chain, right, with one of these major manufacturers that sells all these refrigeration equipment with all these quick connects and AeroQuip fittings, right? And they send these pictures in a monthly email like, here's the installations that were bad. What do you guys think? And just to let you know, this is where people made mistakes. And half the complaints that I see in this email chain is because they have a 50-foot line set. It was only a 20-foot run and it has quick connect fittings on it. And they don't have the capability because they're not a refrigeration contractor to cut the line set, evacuate it, and connect it properly. So therefore, they're left with an extra 20 feet of copper and they just coil it up and leave it on the roof. Guess what? that refrigeration manufacturer would not have those problems and would not have that tarnished name if they just simply stopped making that crap and let a legit contractor do the installations and make them to be, you know, where you have to braze the line sets in or use Zoom lock or whatever, but it's going to be a qualified installer. Okay. So yeah, there's some manufacturers that have, you know, they market to, you know, the do-it-yourself kind of stuff, and they're going to see more failures in that. But if equipment is installed properly, it's more than likely going to operate properly. Okay. If you follow the installation manuals on those refrigeration systems too, they actually do tell you what to do if you have leftover line set. There is a proper way to do it. If you have 20 foot of line set, you can actually do it without cutting it. You just need to secure it down below the roof deck, leave the coiled up section in a proper way, not creating oil traps, secure it properly, and it'll last the life of the equipment. Okay. But it's all about being installed properly. Okay. So there could be good and bad. You know, there's equipment that people swear is the worst stuff in the world, but a lot of times it's because it's not installed right, or the customer's not using it correctly. It's in a kitchen that's over 100 degrees ambient and it can't maintain temperatures and they're pissed off. Well, guess what? Cool your kitchen down, dummy. You know? All right. I just saw a super chat come through. Stack it up. Thank you so very much for that super chat, man. Good and bad experiences with the Heatcraft Intelligent. I kind of already talked about it. I will say the Intelligent is I was actually working on some Intelligent stuff today. It's good equipment. I do like the interface and the little knob and stuff. There's some quirks in the software in that there's a time delay in there that's kind of confusing and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, the intelligent stuff is good. I don't like the fact that every once in a while, especially on the QRC systems, I would have customers shutting off the equipment and the EEV wouldn't shut all the way because they use it as a solenoid valve, and you would flood back the compressor. That's one downside. But other than that, the Heatcraft Intelligent, the QRC, the beacon systems, they do fine as long as they're installed properly. So anytime you have electronics, the weak points in refrigeration and air conditioning is going to be the sensors. So you have a high failure rate on sensors for sure. So how are the new gauges working out, and how are they compared to the field piece? So let me answer Clive's question. So the snag is that they might sell more of the low skill stuff and just put the liability on the installer. Yeah, that's true. You know, I mean, it's all about money with all these companies. They put money first, which I'm not going to say they're wrong for putting money first because they have to be in business, but you know, one of those. So the new gauges, I want to cover this too, because we have a lot of people in here right now that weren't in here earlier. So how come I'm using Testo products? Did I throw Field Piece in the trash? Is Field Piece crappy now? I've gotten all these questions. Okay. So no, I love my Field Piece products. I'm not getting rid of my Field Piece products. Okay. I'm not necessarily getting rid of my Testo products, but I just recently bought Testo gauges, okay, the 550S and the 550i. I bought the psychrometers, I bought the vacuum gauge, I bought the temperature clamps because myself and the HVAC overtime crew are starting a new YouTube channel project, and we're going to be reviewing tools. Okay. So this was kind of a kickoff that we all bought the same products, and we're all doing a video unboxing and what we think about them, how they work, that kind of stuff. So we're all going to be doing that video, and we're going to start reviewing tools. So that's why I have the Testo products right now. But no, I'm not getting rid of my Field Piece stuff. I'm not going to share information about the review for the Testo right now. Because I don't want to spill the beans. You got to watch the video when it comes out. As far as the video goes, let me see. I see what you're saying there, Joshua Timmons. I got it. All right. Let's see. I'm going to share the YouTube channel right now real quick. Okay. And Control V. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. You only see one video on there right now. It's an old video, but we're going to start posting some new stuff very soon. Have I ever worked on the residential side? No, only for family members and friends. Do I think a company that just does preventative maintenance would be successful? No, I don't think a preventative maintenance company would be very successful. Because there's not a lot of profit, and most customers don't want to do preventative maintenance anymore. My opinion. Okay. Am I 100% worker like Jimmy Neutron and he's a boy genius? Am I 100% worker like Jimmy Neutron and he's a boy genius? I'm not a boy genius. I'm a lazy worker who wants to do the least amount of work, as typical. Yeah. Peter Smart, Aero Quips. They were a bad idea back then. Now they are back. Yeah. They've always been a bad idea, but Aero Quips are very popping back in they're becoming popular again. So, How about a live stream or a ride along with my old man? You know, it's just, I don't think he's really interested in doing anything. He's not a very public person. So anti-DIY HVAC will be offended by DIY. I don't know what you mean by that. Chris, I understand what you're saying, Joshua. I'm not going to say it. All right, let me see what else we got in here. All right, guys. Well, I can smell dinner, so it is time for me to go. I really, really appreciate you guys. Please get that like count. It's doing really good. We're at 352 likes, 395 viewers. So thank you. If you could smash that on your way out, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the outro music. I really do appreciate you guys making it in here. And we will catch you on Friday evening, 6:05 p.m. Pacific Coast time on the HVAC Overtime channel. And then, yeah, that's it. Really, really appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one, okay?